Welcome everyone to another episode of Roots of Faith. For today's episode, I'm sitting down with Subdeacon Daniel Kakish from the Lion's Den. Subdeacon, how are you?
Thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you for having me here. I know this is not your church, but why don't you tell everyone where we are today?
Yeah, we're at St. Mary Syriac Orthodox Church in Orange County. Father Thomas was gracious enough to allow us to use the parish. We're very grateful to him.
Off camera, we were speaking a bit earlier, and you were telling me about your background. You had mentioned to me that you're actually a convert to the Oriental Orthodox faith. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I was born and raised evangelical. I didn't know anything about holy tradition or the apostolic tradition or the church fathers. And it wasn't like any kind of high church either. It was very kind of mainstream evangelical. I wasn't introduced to the concept until I was about in my early 20s. I was in the master's program in history at San Diego State University, and simultaneously Elijah Yessi introduces me to the church fathers. So as I'm studying history, I kind of do a double, and I'm studying church history too. And as soon as I get into it, like Didache, Ignatius, I'm in trouble right away. But I was in denial for like a couple of years because it was going to cost me a lot, like socially, relationships, friends, family, all of that. I didn't have anyone around me who was Oriental Orthodox or I didn't have any kind of connections to that. Yeah.
Why Oriental Orthodoxy? Because when you start studying the church fathers, you have a few options. You can peel back the layer of history, and then you see these church fathers, they don't teach what I believe as a Protestant. Now, you can look at that and go Catholic or Eastern Orthodox or Oriental Orthodox. Why did you choose Oriental Orthodox?
Yeah, good question. So I actually went to a lot of different liturgies in that time. I went to Catholic liturgies, Eastern Orthodox, Assyrian Church of the East. So I was kind of just checking it out. I didn't really know much about any. I didn't know what a liturgy was, what masses were, what they're doing, why they're chanting. I didn't know anything. So, but I had a hypothesis as I was studying as an evangelical that the church starts off believing what I believe and then corrupts over time. I saw that wasn't the case. And it automatically, from the very beginning, doesn't agree with me. So now I have to find which one of these four options is the continuity of the original, right? So when I first heard about, the Council of Ephesus 431, initially I got happy because, there's a side that is rejecting the Theotokos title, I thought, which evangelicals don't accept it.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, maybe it's these guys. And as soon as I found out why...
Oh, so you're aligning with the Nestorians. Okay.
As soon as I found out why they're rejecting it, I was like, I can't side with them, so I have to accept the title, Theotokos. So then I read the Christology there and kind of the two teams that are pitted against each other at this council. And then within 20 years, there's another council in Chalcedon. So, and then I got to that council in my research in the minutes, and I realized that the side that lost in 431 wins in 451, and it's the same two teams fighting against each other. Like I saw, and again, I didn't have a horse in the race. I didn't have any Oriental Orthodox people I knew online anywhere in my life. So I just saw this guy Dioscoros is a victim here. This shouldn't have happened to him. And this was my honest reading of history for myself. And so I was like, this is the side to go with. But I had the only kind of I had with any of these churches was Eastern Orthodox. We knew the priest. He reposed a few years ago, Abuna Hanna Sakkab. So I went to him. I said, Abuna, because I was like, this is the fastest thing, and I want to receive the Eucharist.
Right.
The Eucharist is present. I don't care where it is. I just want to receive the Eucharist. He's like, well, were you baptized? I'm like, I was baptized at, with the evangelicals.
Right.
He's like, okay, let me chrismate you. And he chrismated me, and I received communion.
This is an Eastern Orthodox priest?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is Holy Saturday of May 2013. And then I called the bishop. At the time, it was Sayyidina Joseph Zahlawi for the Antiochian Eastern Orthodox. I told them, Sayyidina, the Syriac church is closer to me. Can I just go there? He goes, yeah, that's fine, whatever. So I went there. I'm already thinking Dioscoros was the good guy at Chalcedon. And then I fell in love with the liturgical tradition. I was reading St. Ephraim at the same time. I was like, and I wanted to go to the church of St. Ephraim, and so I never looked back. I just, technically, I'm still in good standing with.
That's very interesting.
Yeah,
you mentioned a phrase that was very fascinating. You said you saw that the side that lost at 431 wins at 451. What do you mean by that?
So Theodoret of Cyrus and his team of friends. So like John of Antioch, he was not alive by that time, but his nephew Dominus II was Patriarch of Antioch. Theodoret was the biggest of all these names, Ibas of Edessa, etc. Just the whole line. That Antiochian school, the school of Theodore of Mopsuestia, Diodore of Tarsus, that side is able to take shade under the branches of Chalcedon. I'm not saying that Chalcedon was like, intentionally Nestorian. No, but the people who should be viewed as heretics by all sides, like Theodoret, is exonerated at this council without repentance. Ibas of Edessa's letter to Mari, who was the Catholicos of the Church of the East, is admitted by everyone to be a heretical letter, is accepted as evidence of his orthodoxy at Chalcedon. So when I saw that, I was like, I cannot accept this. Like, if I'm accepting 431, this is against 431. I can't reconcile the two.
What are the key things that stand out to you at 451 that you're like, I can't subscribe to this? Sure.
So like, for example, when Dioscoros says, I can accept from two, but not two. I don't think that the Chalcedon should have had a problem with the statement. Sure. This is what Cyril said. This is what the formula of reunion says.
From two natures, but not of two natures?
No. From two natures, but not in two natures.
Not in two natures.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Chalcedon should have been like, yeah, that's cool. That's what we said 20 years ago. That's what Cyril said. That's what the formula of reunion of 433 says. No problem. But they didn't. He was deposed. And it's crazy because in that council, they said he wasn't deposed for heresy. He was deposed because he refused the thrice summons, which he was under house arrest. The soldiers weren't even letting him go to the summons. So his deposition wasn't fair. Ibas's letter was huge to me. Like, how can this be accepted? And like, it's being read out loud. Everyone can hear it, and they're not condemning this letter. Not only that, you're using it for evidence of his orthodoxy. So, and then Theodoret, who says, this is his so-called repentance at Chalcedon. He says, I was Orthodox, and my fathers were Orthodox. Who's his fathers? Theodore of Mopsuestia. So what kind of repentance is that? Abuna, I was right, and the people who taught me were right. That's not repentance. So there's no way I could have subscribed to viewing this council as being led by the Holy Spirit.
So Dioscoros, he gets deposed, but not for being a heretic, but for disciplinary matters.
Yes,
essentially.
Exactly.
Did they view him as a heretic though? After, like, subsequently,
centuries later. Yeah, because even in 532, there's conversations between the two sides, and again the Chalcedonian side says he wasn't a heretic. And then in 553, the Fifth Ecumenical Council, they don't condemn him for heresy again. It's not until the Sixth Council that he's condemned as a heretic. Obviously, you'll have like individuals on the side saying, like a Pope of Rome said it I think it was Hormisdas of Rome had said it, but like as an ecumenical thing, it was just the Sixth Council.
And when they finally did condemn him as a heretic, was it on what basis? Did they see that?
They said it was Eutychianism, Monophysitism. I mean, nothing where we have anything from him like showing us that he was a Monophysite or he was a Eutychian.
Now, at 431, the Orientals are that's your council. Like you're fully affirm that council. Yeah. 451, reject it. Does the Oriental Orthodox Church have their own council, like continuing that lineage after? Yeah.
So I'm sure you heard of Ephesus 2, 449. Like, so after 431, there's like some controversy, and then 449 like kind of closes the door on the whole Theodoret school.
Who was present at that? Was that East and West?
Yes, everybody was present. Leo of Rome didn't accept it, even though his representatives were there, because the tome of Leo was not read. It wasn't read because the government officials didn't want it to be read. Why didn't they want it to be read? Because they wanted to exonerate Eutyches. He was their friend. He was a friend of the emperor. So even though Dioscoros in the minutes explicitly asks for the tome to be read, the government officials interrupt the council and do not let it be read.
What does it mean to exonerate somebody?
To like restore him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like rehabilitate him.
So the government officials at Ephesus wanted to restore Eutyches, who was friendly with the government.
Yeah.
And so that's why the tome wasn't read.
Exactly.
But it gets read at 451.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So but Leo, whoever reported back to him, or however it was reported back to him in Rome, we don't know what the details were. We just know he got really upset and he excommunicated Dioscoros and he excommunicated the whole East. So, and this is something I think is reproachable between Catholics and Orthodox, because we could sit at a table and talk and say, well, the Roman Catholic Church is not claiming that whoever is telling Leo about this event is telling him infallibly. Right. And that Leo, his reaction to it, there's no infallible claim here. So then we could talk about, well, maybe we rushed too hard on Dioscoros. And then we could be like, well, maybe the tome wasn't translated to us in the right way. It correctly translated. Like we could talk about this again. It doesn't have to be this way.
What are some things that you don't agree with from the tome? Like what do the Oriental Orthodox have in opposition to it?
So what we see, like there's the famous thing about each nature or each form doing what is proper to it. So now when you have two forms doing, so if you have two doers, then what is that? So this is a problem to us. But again, Leo writes it in Latin. We have it in Greek. Is the translation infallible? There was a letter written in 497, this is after the schism, from the Church of Alexandria to the church in Rome, telling them, we don't know if this translation of your tome is the correct translation that you intended it to be. Theodoret translated it, who everyone hates. Yeah. So let's talk about it. Leo himself, this is in 452, I think. He says, he's upset. In two of his letters, he says he's upset because whoever translated his tome translated it to make him look Nestorian. He says that. So I think this is something that might have potentially been avoidable.
Who's the patriarch at this time? Is this for you guys Saint Dioscoros? Is that the patriarch?
He's patriarch. So he's patriarch from 444 until 454. Chalcedon deposes him in 451, but we continue to recognize.
So his predecessor was Saint Cyril.
Yeah, he was Saint Cyril picked him to be the successor.
So if I understand correctly, like in the past 2 years learning about Catholic theology, you do hear language that is used like Christ in his humanity did this, Christ in his divinity did this. Is that problematic for Oriental Orthodox?
That's totally fine, because you're still saying Christ did it. If he's doing it through his humanity or through his divinity, that's fine. But it's not that the divinity is doing and the humanity is doing. It's Christ is doing via this or via that. That's okay. But as soon as you're saying each form does, now you're saying the nature does the thing. This is the problem.
Okay, because I saw a chart, I think it was Vartan that shared it, and it said like the differences between miaphysis and diaphysis. And it gave examples, and I was reading it, and I was like, everything from the miaphysite side, I think, is compatible in some way, can be reconciled with the Catholic position. So I didn't really see an issue. I was like, where are we running into an issue? Because I see that this could be reconciled if we approach it in a nuanced manner.
Yeah, it's very sad. It's very unfortunate where we've come. But I think the world is a lot smaller now, and conversations can be had much more easily in the same language, whereas previously that wasn't the case. So I'm really hoping that progress is made. I've been talking to Elijah Yassi about these things recently, and me and him are on the same page about it. We're going to do a show about it soon. Yeah.
So as of right now, is there anything that you see from the Catholic side where you're like, we can't get on board with this? Like
Christologically or in general?
Christologically, yeah.
Well, it depends. If the tome is... If the historical understanding in like the Greek translation and its interpretation afterwards is the right way of understanding it, then we would have a problem. But if it was mistranslated and if there was a misunderstanding, then I would love for this to be true. Yeah.
You know, I had stumbled upon a quote from Chalcedon, and it says something to the effect of the Pope is the head of all churches, and something I'm totally butchering it, but paraphrasing, that Peter is the rock, the foundation of the faith. If you were to grab that quote, and I was talking to Abuna Lazarus about this, I said, I think if you were to grab that quote and just share it to an Eastern Orthodox, at first glance, it'd be easy to say, from an Eastern Orthodox perspective, that's heresy. If you don't tell them the source, and then you say, wait a minute, this is actually your council that is authoritative. Is it true that the Oriental Orthodox saw this language also as problematic?
It's only problematic if it's exclusive to Rome. We don't have any problem. On the contrary, we wholeheartedly believe in high Petrine ecclesiology. Peter is the prince of the apostles, the chief of the apostles, the head of the apostles. It was upon him that the church was founded, because we don't separate his confession from his person. Right. Like we know Jesus said in Aramaic to Peter, you are Kipho, and upon this Kipho I will build my church. He uses the same word both times. The Greek doesn't have this. It has a different word. So we're 100% on board. We believe that, just like how even popes of Rome had previously said, there are 3 Petrine sees: Rome, Alexandria, Antioch. So if it's intended to be exclusive to Rome, we would have a problem.
Because I was told, like, from the Oriental Orthodox perspective, what the Greeks saw at 1054, the Orientals saw at 451. Is that kind of fair?
Yeah. We tend to view Leo as like a hyper aggressive pope, and we usually, you'll hear us say like this concept of the papal dogmas really begins with him. Yeah, I would say so.
How much of persecution arose after the Council of Chalcedon gets rejected by the Oriental side?
Oh, wow. Like, it got to a point where we were almost completely exterminated, the Syriac Orthodox Church.
By who? Who's doing the
By the empire. Because when a council happens, it becomes policy. So to go against it would be going against the legal policy. So in the time of, say, Justin and Justinian, we were almost wiped out. We had 3 bishops left. And we were doing secret ordinations and like cross-border ordinations. Queen Theodora, who's a saint for us, she was hiding our bishops from her husband.
She's the queen of what?
The Roman Empire,
Of the Roman Empire.
Constantinople.
Okay.
Yeah, because she was ethnically our people, and she was helping us. But there's cases, for example, they so in the monasteries before and even now, depending on where you are, they would eat once a day at a particular time. So the soldiers know when they're gonna eat. So they go every time during that time of day to the monastery to eat all the food so that the monks can't eat for that day. Every day until the monks starve and they die. Another monk, one time, they forced him to receive the Chalcedonian communion. Like they forced him, like by held him down and they put it in his mouth. He spit it out of his mouth. They burned him at the stake.
Wow.
Yeah. There's many, like we were almost exterminated.
What about when the Crusades started to happen? Where's, because you hear about, where the Greeks play a role in that. When that's happening, what's going on in Egypt? What's going on in Syria? What's
Yeah, Egypt was never under the Crusaders because they weren't able to get that far in. They weren't committed to get that far in. So the Copts didn't really have a shift in relations there. But in terms of the Christians in the Levant, like who were not open to becoming Uniate or Catholic like the Maronites did, they didn't have an easy time whatsoever. They were not treated better than the Muslims, and if so, very little. Like it would be, they were viewed as like heretics or heathens. It wasn't like, I mean, if they sacked Constantinople and they were even closer to them, then what are they going to do to us?
Right.
Yeah.
Are there any letters or responses from the Oriental side when they're seeing all this happen, like the sack of Constantinople, or even like the massacre of the Latins that happened before that?
Yeah, so there was the county of Edessa, one of the Crusader states, the county of Edessa, where there were a lot of Syriac Orthodox there. And the Syriac Orthodox that are contemporary with this are not speaking positively of the state at all. They were actually hopeful that it was going to be somewhat more merciful than the caliphate or whatever was before, but it wasn't. So this is also true for the Principality of Antioch and the Kingdom of Jerusalem. I think the Syriac Orthodox who were left had to leave. They couldn't stay, and then they came back once Jerusalem fell again. Because we have a monastery there, St. Mark's. It was where the Last Supper was. So there was many times throughout history where we'd have to leave completely and then hope that when we get back, it'll still be there.
I want to get into the filioque, but before I get into that, prior to the schism, there was a lot of butting heads between East and West. And one of the principal points of contention was the azymes that were used for communion from the West. And in fact, I think it was Patriarch John the Oxite of Antioch. He said that the principal cause of disunity between the East and West, this is already after the filioque and papal, the papal authority that had presented itself. He said that it's actually the azymes. The leavened bread. The leavened versus unleavened bread. Yeah. That's the main issue. Where do you guys stand on that?
We have no issue with it. Like the Armenians, they use unleavened. We use leavened. There was a situation where the Copts felt like being cool and tried using unleavened bread. So the Coptic Pope and the Armenian Patriarch wrote a letter to the Syriac Patriarch saying, you need to use unleavened bread too. And he's like, no, and you guys should change yours. So the Copts switched back. The Armenians stayed using leavened.
Okay, is that their tradition?
Unleavened. Sorry.
Is that their tradition to use unleavened?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they don't put water in their wine either. It's just straight wine. So, and that's the early church. Like the primitive church was just diverse in communion. We have the same faith. We don't have to get all these little teas.
Are there any traditions in the Oriental Orthodox faith where communion is received in the hand?
No, there's indications of like in the early Syriac church, but it's unclear. Like Aphrahad and Ephraim speak of communion in the hand, but we're unsure if this included lay people or if it was just because Aphrahat was a bishop and Ephraim was a full deacon. And even if it was the case, they were all drinking from the same cup anyway. So if you're going to do it in the hand, then you have to do the whole cup separate and everyone's drinking from the same cup too. But as far as I'm understanding the history, I don't think that was the case. Yeah.
There's a book by Sitchansky. I like mention it like in all my interviews, so people are like, that's probably the only book he's read. It's Beards, Azymes, and Purgatory. So he also talks about how beards were a point of contention for the East, the Greeks making these accusations against the West, having Judaizing tendencies. Was that anything in the
that the West had beards or didn't?
That they didn't have beards.
Okay,
that they were clean shaven.
Yeah.
They were on and off. There was points of history where they did have beards.
Right.
But
So for us, it's not. We won't make a problem about it, but it's just not. It looks weird to us if we see a priest without a beard.
Yeah.
But if there's a priest without a beard, okay, he doesn't have a beard. It's not a big deal. Yeah.
And then the other part of that is so the book is titled Beards, Azymes, and Purgatory. Where does the Oriental Orthodox? I spoke about this a little bit with Vartan. Where from your tradition, where do you see purgatory? In that respect?
We certainly believe in purification after death. Absolutely, there's no way around it. We offer the Eucharist on behalf of our faithful departed. Saint Ephraim talks a lot about purification after death. He talks about paying recompense in Gehenna. He talks about, like temporarily, I mean. And he talks about being in a remote corner of paradise until your purification is complete, or being outside the gates. And you know how, like, if you have a neighbor and there's a fence between you and you have a fruit tree, sometimes the branches goes on the neighbor's side. So he's like, in paradise, if you're outside being purified, sometimes the branch will come over the gate and you'll get some shade. So he talks about this. In the burial rite, the priest says, he anoints the body and he says, may by this oil you become slippery to the spirits of the air. So it talks. The whole implication is that there is this spiritual journey of purification after death. Absolutely. Like when I present this to Roman Catholics and Eastern Orthodox, they both say, okay, this is purgatory / what are the things?
Toll houses.
Toll houses.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, whatever you want to call it, this is what we believe. Yeah.
Do you guys make reference to the toll houses? Because I know Saint Cyril does.
Just this, like this, what I'm telling you, if that counts as that. And
So like from the Catholic position, if somebody's in purgatory, that means that they're saved, that there's nothing that they can do to get into heaven or to lose their salvation. Would you? Yeah,
if you're being purified temporarily after death, that means you're saved.
You're going to be.
Exactly.
Okay.
The other option is you would be in Gehenna forever, not just the temporary state.
So when people are making prayers for the departed, that's to help them in that purification process, or?
Yes.
Okay. So there's no period where you die, because if I'm not mistaken, some of the language in the toll houses where there's a chance that you can still lose your salvation, or when you're being tempted by the demons, after death, you're in this kind of intermediary state.
That's an interesting way to think. I've always thought of it as it's like a test it's a test, but there's no chance of you failing. I don't know.
Like the outcome's already predetermined.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
So St. Paul talks about the principalities in the air. There's the whole concept of the ladder, but I never thought about it that you can actually lose. I have to look into this, to be honest.
I don't know if that's the case, or maybe that was just the language that I kind of interpreted it as being, but maybe it's already like a predetermined outcome, and it's just kind of like how it's making itself manifest to the people that are.
Because the point of the purification is to overcome whatever sinful desires you had, according to your own free will here.
Right.
So in order to achieve that purification, you need to pass those. You need to pass those last tests, whatever it is that you need.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Let's get into the filioque. Where is your stance, or the church's stance, on the filioque?
I always make Oriental Orthodox nervous because I tell them, so there was a church council in 410 AD in the Church of the East. So the Syriac Orthodox version of the minutes of that council, it mentions the creed there, and it says, the Holy Spirit who is from the Father and the Son. Okay? It doesn't say the word proceeds. We have the word proceeds in Syriac, but it doesn't say it here. It just says from. So then Catholics get like, well, we want it to be. And then the Oriental Orthodox like, that's not what it means. And I just kind of put it out there for them to fight about it. But I believe that there is one cause, who is the Father, one spiration, one procession. I believe that the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father through the Son, or that we cannot say that the Son and the Holy Spirit do not have an eternal relationship. We know for sure that they have an eternal relationship, but we don't want to try to define something if it's not defined for us. Yeah.
I saw an example. Somebody said that it's kind of like a fountain, or like like turning on the sink. The water is coming through the faucet, but it's coming from the original cause is whatever the source is, wherever we get our water from.
Yeah.
But it has to go through the faucet, but it's technically coming from the faucet.
Yeah.
And the source.
Right.
So, and the Father's referred to as like the fountainhead, if I'm not mistaken. So it's kind of like, when I think about it like that, I'm like, I don't see why anybody would have a problem with it.
Yeah. I think when the matter comes up in a real dispute, it's because they're debating it in its historical context. So like if you go to the Council of Florence, things like this, the language there becomes very problematic to Eastern ears.
Because it denotes that the Spirit is being caused by both, as the
right. Like the order of the Trinity gets kind of messed up to us.
Yeah, kind of like an upside down triangle. Where It's like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right now, Oriental Orthodoxy is having a moment. It's having a good moment on social media. You're seeing that it's starting to grow. There's more representatives of the faith like yourself. Who are some of the people that you're looking at, that you're watching, that you're seeing that they're coming up?
I mean, how can I start any list without beginning with Agan, right? God bless him. May he keep pushing. Previously, we had... when I started this 6 years ago. I had just come back from the monastery, and I wasn't intending to start anything. I just kind of went on as a token Oriental guy. And then, some of the younger kids, some younger Coptic kids started reaching out to me here and there. And we had some stuff over the years, like we had that series with Sam. And the group of the Coptic kids, I was calling them the Parabolani. It was like Pope St. Theophilus's gang of monks that he had. And the name kind of stuck. And then Agan was still young at the time. He's still young now. And then and then he kind of takes it to the next level. So I think it gives us a voice to be among the options of the inquirers of the churches that attempt to maintain the holy tradition. I never got started, and it was never my intention to be an apologist. I just wanted to kind of present my church, actually particularly the Syriac Orthodox view on things. But over the years, I was put in positions where I had to defend, even though it wasn't my intention. So then now, because of kind of how the apologetic online world has developed, these kids are kind of coming up in that mindset of this is like apologetics, this is what we do. Personally, me, I still try to not, and then I leave that to them. And I think they're doing a pretty good job. But it's... and this is why it's appealing to people, but I think it's important for them to kind of maintain the Orthodox spirit, the Orthodox ethos, and not to kind of fall into behavior that we've seen from others.
Why do you think Oriental Orthodoxy is having its moment right now? Like, what do you think shifted?
That's why, is because now this is presentable. There was no voice previously. There was no one who was there. Like, the only people who were talking about us were those who are not us. So we weren't there to speak for ourselves. Yeah.
I remember when we first started Voice of Reason, Alex and myself, some of the first few videos was like, what is the Oriental Orthodox Church? What is the Eastern Orthodox Church? So when he made those videos, that a lot of there wasn't a lot of representation at the time, because this was back in 2023, I think, when we started. And yeah, it might have been 2023 when we started. And all the Orientals were commenting. They were so happy to see that somebody made a video about, Oriental Orthodoxy.
We're new here, we're new in the West. So like Roman Catholics, Eastern Orthodox have been in the Western Hemisphere longer than we have. So we're like first generation American born.
Right.
And so we're finally kind of being able to speak for ourselves.
Like you had mentioned, the priest, even for this church, is
the first American-born priest in the whole Syriac Orthodox Church in the world.
So it's very new.
Yeah.
Not even 50 years old.
Yeah.
Here in the United States.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. The first Syriac Orthodox Church in America is on the East Coast, New York, New Jersey. It was in the 19th century, but it's being here in a time where resources are available to learn. So it's like both things kind of happening at the same time.
What were your thoughts? Because for me, the big breakout moment that I would say for the Oriental Orthodox was when Deacon Miret had his interaction with Cliff and Stewart.
That was a big one.
Yeah. What did you think when you saw that?
I was very proud of him. I'm a big Deacon Miret fan. He made us all very proud that day. And it's good that this conversation happened between an Oriental Orthodox and a Protestant rather than a Roman Catholic or an Eastern Orthodox, because it gives those other two, the Roman Catholics and the Eastern Orthodox, the view that these guys are fighting for the same things that we're fighting for. They're arguing the same points we're arguing. So we have a lot in common. We have a lot to share. Why are we kind of just in this time machine focusing on what to fight about?
Right. Yeah, and it's interesting that it's happening now when the Eucharist is like a big conversation now. Like, where now it's starting to look like a lot of Protestants are starting to jump over, whether it be Catholicism, Eastern Orthodoxy, or Oriental Orthodoxy.
Yeah.
Have you seen Protestants starting to kind of consider Oriental Orthodox?
Yeah, we've had some in my parish convert. There was like 70 in the Syriac Orthodox Church in Holland.
70?
Yeah, there was like 70 catechumen got baptized on Holy Saturday. Things are happening.
What do you think is going to be like when we start to get? I think eventually, like, Protestants are going to start to become a minority. I think that's just what people.
Matter of time.
Yeah.
It has to be. Once this information is made available the way it is, you can't stay Protestant, like, unless you want to be in denial forever. Like, you can't be honest with yourself and be Protestant.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you'd mentioned to me off camera that your parents, when they came here, and they came from Syria, or
my dad's from Jordan, my mom's from Iraq.
So when I hear that, I'm like, okay, they're probably Oriental Orthodox,
Should be.
Yeah, and then you told me they're evangelical, so that came like as a surprise to me. Why would that be appealing to somebody who comes from that background?
So, okay, in my experience, the people who do not have backgrounds in the traditional churches are it's easier to open their eyes.
Right.
But the ones who were in our churches and left, it's harder to bring them back. Mm-hmm. So the Middle Eastern evangelicals, because they're first generation evangelicals, like, they're the ones who converted. So it's hard to get them to come back. It's their kids who you got to work on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want to go back to what you had mentioned earlier about how Oriental Orthodoxy is growing. We have, these good representatives like yourself online now, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok even. And it's important that the culture is not going towards like the, hyper polemicist type of attitudes. Like you're seeing it like, I really appreciate that actually. Everyone I've met with so far from the Coptic tradition, whether it's a layperson or a priest, like everyone's been very welcoming, very respectable, very respectful. How do you think it's going to look like in the next like 5 years?
I hope we continue to, even when we're not doing the good things you said we do, I hope that happens a less amount of times, and we continue to grow in holiness and be an example to everyone, because all these conversations are to be had in charity, in humility, like that we love each other, and that's why we're talking about this. We're not trying to make each other look like we're stupid or look like we're liars. Or that's not the goal. The goal is I actually care about you and I want to talk about it. So if we continue to have this mindset, hopefully it continues to grow.
So as far as unity is concerned, when you look at the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Roman Catholic Church, which church would it be easier for you to see that the Oriental Orthodox Church unites with? I know there's been talks historically among the patriarchs with both respective traditions. What do you see as like an easier path to unity, and what are some things that would be like major obstacles for each one?
Good question, bro. So I could see challenges that are exclusive to each. But I think generally it would be easier for unity with the Roman Catholic Church.
Really?
Yeah. The exclusive challenge there obviously being the papal dogmas. Right. But the diversity is something that the Roman Catholic Church doesn't have a problem with. And Oriental Orthodoxy is very diverse, as you know. Whereas in Eastern Orthodoxy, everything is the same rite. It's all the Byzantine rite, the whole thing. Russia, Serbia, Constantinople, Georgia, everything is Byzantine.
Right. Although the Western rite is starting to grow.
And what is that? What rite is that? I don't know.
So it follows the Mass of Pope St. Gregory.
Oh, so it's Latin?
Yeah, so it's Latin.
Okay.
They have two versions, I think, like the Anglican Ordinariate. There's one Western rite under the Antiochian, and then there's one under Rokor, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
so it's very small, but I can see that as potentially
sure. Like,
but to your point, there's like not really much
right.
like
So
variety.
And the reason I say this as an issue is because I know in the mission attempts that they had with the Assyrian Church of the East, the Assyrians who became Eastern Orthodox had to leave the Syriac rite and adopt the Byzantine rite. So unless that kind of opens to be inclusive of the different rites that are native to these countries, that would be a very big problem. That and Rome wouldn't have this problem with us. Another thing I think that the Eastern Orthodox present a challenge with is they are less united. Because they're less united, who's the agreement with? So like right now, talks are going great with Russia, but not so much with Rokor. Isn't Rokor part of Russia? Why are talks good with Russia but not with Rokor? What is this disunity? Or Russia and Constantinople are not united. Well, the Greek bishop of North America, I forget his name, the one on the East Coast. He has good relations with the Oriental bishops on the East Coast, but Constantinople doesn't, or Jerusalem doesn't, but Eastern Orthodox Antioch does. Like, who are you talking to? It's like they are everywhere. But with Rome, it's easy.
Right.
Yeah.
What is the overall attitude from the Oriental Orthodox towards those that have come back into communion with Rome? For example, like the, I don't know if there are other Syriac Catholics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like Syriac Catholics, for example, or Coptic Catholics.
What do we view them in terms of?
Like, what's the overall attitude? Because like amongst the Eastern Orthodox, it's kind of like mixed opinions. You know, you can have some that are favorable towards them because they're similar, but then there's also those that say you're traitors because you're.
I don't think we view them as traitors, since it wasn't their, like, they weren't born and clicked the button, like they were just born into it. So we don't view them as traitors, but we view that, like, because there's a lot of intermarriage between us and them. So they come to our parish a lot, and our parishes in general back home here, the villages are right next to each other. Like, we grow up with them.
Right.
So when they come, if they're we view them as like the kid coming to visit his mom. Like, the kid, he moved out of his mom's house. He wants to come visit his mom. He can always come.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So with Rome, your issues would be primarily the papal dogmas. What about like the Immaculate Conception or purgatory or these other post-schism dogmatically defined?
I think these are all negotiable. Like, I think we can talk about it. Like, the online folks who are debating will take like official documents and, like, pick out everything of what's unacceptable. But we're human beings. We can sit at a table and our theologians can discuss. And this is something that, like, this is today when they're having the official dialogue. These are not what's being brought up. This isn't what's keeping us apart.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a challenge with, like, since the Oriental Orthodox split very early from the Roman Catholic Church or from the West, it's been 1,500 years apart?
Yeah.
Roughly. What would it look like having to accept, like, the other councils, like the Council of Trent, the Vatican I, Vatican II?
So that's the thing. So, like, if it is what I was saying earlier about this, let's say we get over the Christology thing and we agree, like, there was a mistranslation, and there was like apologies and all that stuff, and we somehow worked that out.
Right.
And we worked out the papacy thing. There's no way this is completely not in reality of us accepting any of those councils. Yeah. Like, I'm telling you, as an Oriental Orthodox, we'd all rather die than accept Chalcedon.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's a strong statement.
Yeah.
We actually, let's talk about the roundtable discussion that we had. We filmed the roundtable discussion back in, I don't know what month it was, but we had representatives of the Oriental Orthodox faith. How do you think that discussion went, and how do you think the response to that discussion was?
I think it went amazing.
Yeah.
I was very happy to be a part of that. Very honored.
I wish we had more time. I think we were just scratching the surface.
Yeah, I can't wait for the next one. Very excited for it, and I didn't mind the response at all. We are the brown cult. We're proud of it. The more brown, the better. I don't know.
I don't know if I'm part of the brown cult, but I think I'm darker than you.
Yeah. We welcome all. We don't care what color you are. And we are happy that we have all of these rights, all of these traditions, all of these languages, because we're the Catholic Church. Jesus spoke Aramaic, prayed Aramaic. The apostles did too. This is the Aramaic Church. Yeah.
It's beautiful. What's your appraisal of, like, I don't know if I asked Bartan this question, of the saints that came after, like St. John of Damascus. Like, for me, I really love the Eastern Orthodox tradition, and I really love the Eastern saints, St. Maximus the Confessor, St. John of Damascus, St. Theodore the Studite. When you look at these saints, are they opponents to Oriental Orthodoxy, or how do you view them?
Yeah, so it depends who we're talking about. John of Damascus, he wrote a lot against us, and he wrote what I would consider as straw men, like things that we don't believe that he would accuse us of believing. If you go back from when I start this online thing in 2019 until this very day, never once have I publicly or even privately insulted any of the Chalcedonian saints. Never, not one time. It's not my position to do that. God is the judge of all of us. So I respectfully disagree with whatever they said that was against our side, because it's not true.
What are some of those straw man arguments that
So
were presented?
on your shirt you have the Trisagion.
Mm-hmm.
In our Trisagion we say, Holy God, Holy Mighty, Holy Immortal, who was crucified for us, have mercy on us. So for us, the Trisagion is Christological. It's Holy, Almighty, Immortal God was crucified for us. About the second person of the Trinity. This was how the Trisagion was understood by everybody until later on in history. So John of Damascus, by his time, the Trisagion for the Chalcedonian tradition becomes triadological, not Christological according to his tradition. So for him, Holy God is the Father, Holy Mighty is the Son, Holy Immortal is the Spirit. That's not how we understand. We understand that the whole thing is about the second person of the Trinity. He says, because they have, you were crucified for us, so they're adding a fourth person in the Trinity. That's not what we're doing.
That's what he
said we do that. Yeah.
Huh. I always thought it was just referring to the Trinity in general, but you're saying it's referring to the second person.
That's what that's how we've always understood.
And St. John of Damascus interprets it as
the Trinity, but he's saying the Oriental Orthodox, because they have that clause, who was crucified for us, so they're adding a fourth person. So there's the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and then the human Jesus who was crucified. He thinks we're doing, he wrote at least, I don't know if he thinks it, but he wrote, that's what we say, that's what we do. But that's not what's happening. Yeah.
What is some of the I know we touched on it a little bit, but what is some of the language that you can't agree with when speaking of Christ doing something in his humanity, in his divinity? What have you seen? Are there any saints that have said something that's kind of like problematic in that regard? It's kind of splitting the two natures from your perspective?
Yeah. When you have a nature doing something versus the one doing something through his nature, that's okay to do. But when the nature is doing something, now we have a problem. So if you say God died in the flesh, no problem. God died in the flesh, no problem. But if you say only the flesh died, now we have a problem, because the flesh becomes a doer here.
God died in the flesh is acceptable, but only the flesh died.
Only the human nature died. Something like this, because now the nature is doing instead of the one to whom it belongs.
From a nuanced perspective, could it be reconciled? Because technically God doesn't cease to be.
Of course.
So the divinity never ceased to be.
Correct.
And it can't be touched by death.
Right.
So when you look at it from that perspective, could it be, because which saints spoke of this type of language? Because I'm sure if maybe we were to ask them did you mean this by this? It'd probably be acceptable.
Yeah, I'm open to that. For example, again, Leo, in his tome, when he's saying each form does what is proper to it, and then he gives details. Or he'll say the one who the Magi worshipped is not the one who said, I'm thirsty on the cross, or is a different one or something. I don't remember the exact quote. I'm paraphrasing, but something like this, where it becomes two ones who are doing something. Theodoret, who I openly cannot stand, but Nicaea 2:787 calls him blessed. Theodoret, he says, it is not the one who has life in himself who died, rather it is the mortal one. How many ones is that? There's two ones. One is two ones. That means two. Then we have a problem. So, again, is it a translation issue? I'm open to this. But conceptually, it has to be the same one who created the universe, who was thirsty, tired, hungry, died, and rose from the dead. It has to be the same one.
Right. Because he condescended in order to do those things.
And that's how we can have salvation.
Yeah.
If it was just a human, then how does that save me or you?
Right. What similarities do you see between Nestorianism, the heresy of Nestorianism, and Diaphysitism?
Yeah, so...
Because I do see like when I look and I observe, I think the defense of Miaphysitism, I look at it, I'm like, this looks, from my perspective, and I'm just, I'm not an apologist, I don't know what I'm looking at, but from what I see at first glance, I'm like, this makes sense to me. The defense of Miaphysitism makes sense. One composite nature, fully God, fully man, that makes sense to me. But then I see like an overcorrection where it's like, if you don't believe this, how we express it, you're a Nestorian. So there's this accusation being thrusted back at us that we're Nestorian.
Yeah, that's another thing that I was very careful never to do. I don't use that word. I view the Assyrian Church of the East, they're my brothers. I don't believe, truly in my heart, I don't believe that their version of diophysitism is different in a worse way than Roman Catholic diophysitism. On the contrary, I believe they're more intricate about it. I don't think it's fair to call them Nestorian. So I think this label, it's a straw man label to like kind of to fearmonger. I think both sides, the Assyrian Church of the East and the Roman Catholic, is just saying there's one person and two natures. That's it. And they have a common agreement between the two. The Patriarch of the Church of the East, I think it was 1994, Mardincha and Pope John Paul II, they signed a common Christological agreement saying we have the same Christology.
But what Nestorius himself espoused is heresy, right? Or
if you are a Diophysite and you read what Nestorius wrote after Chalcedon. So he wrote after Chalcedon, and he said, this is all I was trying to say. He said, Leo said it better than I could.
He clarified his position.
He says, sure, I'll take my own condemnation. He says, anathema to Nestorius. He says it about himself. Wow. Anathema to Nestorius, the truth won out.
Yeah.
He says, this is all I meant.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do the Assyrians venerate him as a saint?
Nestorius, yeah.
Yeah.
But they do it really late. Like they don't have like his writings as an authority or anything. They just have him as a saint, yeah.
Okay. As far as ecclesiology is concerned in the Oriental Orthodox faith, do you now have, so you mentioned that the Petrine sees were Rome, Alexandria, and Antioch. How is that structured within the overall ecclesiology of the Oriental Orthodox tradition?
Good question. So Nicaea gives us these three sees in particular as unique jurisdictional power, all three of them explicitly. Today, we have Alexandria and Antioch in communion. So they have primacy of honor among the Oriental heads, but also everyone else, Armenia being an exception, everyone else receiving or had received autocephaly from them anyway. So they are the source of the other churches. Like the Abyssinians have their autocephaly from Alexandria. The Indians, when they get it, it'll be from Antioch. So we recognize that these sees were established by the Antioch directly from Peter, first see established. Alexandria by Peter via Mark when Peter was in Rome. So there is a primacy of honor among them, absolutely.
Do you think the Council of Chalcedon teaches papal supremacy?
Implicitly, yeah. I think, well, okay. So Leo intended his tome to be universally binding even before the council. It was not an option for him. It was non-negotiable. Leo intended it like this is ex cathedra. He didn't care if there was a council or not to make it happen. The council, what it does is it canonizes this implication, because when you have bishops walking in, like Theodoret, who was condemned before, walking in, exonerated, restored back to his honorifics, Dioscoros asking, how is he even allowed in here? They're saying he's restored on authority of Leo. And Dioscoros says, by what canon can Leo do that? And they don't reply to Dioscoros. So when this is all happening, it's an implication of papal supremacy. I don't see how Eastern Orthodox can get around it.
Do you think the West saw itself as having those prerogatives?
Leo, yeah.
Do you think the Eastern bishops consented to that?
I think they consented to it when it benefited them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when do you see it in the other councils, the following councils?
More clearly. The fifth one is weird. The fifth one, if I was Roman Catholic, I would have a problem with the fifth council. Mm-hmm. But the sixth and seventh councils, there's no question.
So this would be a challenge for Eastern Orthodox to try and square the language that is
no doubt.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I've seen varying interpretations. I mean, obviously you hear the popular one where it's like, these are words of honor, honorifics, nothing more to it, considering prerogatives. But I've also seen other interpretations saying, we believe these things insofar as the Pope is Orthodox, insofar as the Pope maintains and upholds the true faith. We don't believe that he is indefectible, but we believe that he is the first among equals, and he does have a role as the head of the church. Now you won't find that in modern apologetics. You typically won't find Eastern Orthodox acknowledging that the Pope is the head of the church or was the head of the church in the first millennium. But some apologists that I've listened to, they do concede that yes, he was the head of the church insofar as he works in tandem, in concert with the other bishops.
That's what Elijah Yassi says. Yeah. So the Eastern Orthodox, they have a bigger problem than this because they have to show why he stopped being Orthodox. What happened that he stopped being Orthodox? The Filioque? No. Because he was doing the Filioque and you were still in communion for 200, 300 years? The Filioque was already being said by the West, but they stayed in communion, so that wasn't it. So what is it where it was decided that the Pope of Rome is not Orthodox, and how? And was there an ecumenical council about it, or was it just because you felt like breaking communion? Like, what is the authority here for that type of decision?
That's interesting.
Like, we can say, Leo excommunicated us. That's what happened. What can they say? Is it when the Pope sent the bull of excommunication in 1054 and the guy slapped it on the altar, but that Pope died before the bull got there?
Yeah, Cardinal Humbert.
Yeah, and we know that communion happened after that also. So it's kind of a fake date. Like, what is it? If it is a fake date, which it is, that means communion kept going while the Filioque is happening. So where is the fall into heresy? When does it happen?
Have you read into the Council of 879?
Mm-hmm.
Was it
Constantinople?
Yeah. What are your thoughts on, Saint Photius being restored and what took place there in terms of the challenge to papal authority? Yeah.
So he initially has, and correct me if I'm wrong, you probably know more about this than I do, but he initially has the very anti-filioque view, and he is not in favor of a communion with Rome. And then there's a reconciliation later where all of a sudden he gets quiet about it. We were just on fire 5 minutes ago about not accepting this, and then there's a reconciliation and communion is back and they're still doing the Filioque. So what changed?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, they didn't have the Filioque in the creed, that they had taken it out or something, and it wasn't until later that it was added again.
I'm unaware of this.
And I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm unaware.
I'll have to fact check that. I had learned it and then I forgot. My memory sucks, and so I forgot. Now I have to relearn it.
No worries.
So what is I guess if you had to sum up, what is your message to? We'll do both. What is your message to Eastern Orthodox, and what is your message to Roman Catholics? But start maybe with the Eastern Orthodox.
We love you guys, even though you make it hard. When we talk to each other, we have to remember we have much more in common than we disagree on. It doesn't do your side a favor to go against your clergy and your hierarchy, whether not calling certain groups Christians, or insulting clergy, insulting hierarchy, not respecting them. This all goes against the canons. It's not your position to teach the clergy or the hierarchy things. It's not your position to show them canons. This is not your role. So to be Orthodox is to fall in line, is to be in submission to the Church of God. And in this spirit, we can continue potentially fighting the good fight together online. Hopefully we get to this.
It's funny because growing up Roman Catholic, I had always had a respect for priests, and it's funny, Alex has always been like an apologist, and one time a friend of ours brought over his pastor to his house, and this was like I think we were still maybe in our early 20s, or I want to say maybe early 20s, and he brought over his pastor. And Alex starts like debating him. He brought him over, and then he starts debating him respectfully. Yeah. But he's like really schooling him like bad. And me, because I grew up culturally Catholic, I just assumed pastor was a priest. Yeah. And I was thinking to myself in my head, I was like, dude, you don't talk to priests like that. Why are you talking to him like that? Yeah. I thought the pastor was a priest. Yeah. And then come to find out he was just some Protestant pastor. Yeah. And, he got absolutely floored, know. And it was kind of like a weird foreshadowing, because he was debating this pastor, and I was actually recording it on my phone. And this was before I started doing videos and before he started doing videos. So it was kind of a cool little foreshadowing. But anyway, I've always carried that with me. Like, you have to respect the priests. Even if you don't agree with them, you don't call them out. You don't you don't call them out in a way where you're undermining the authority of the church. Yeah.
They don't answer to you.
And I'm not saying, if there's some liberal priests or whatever doing whatever, that you're not in your right to say anything. But I'm just saying, like, when they are Orthodox, and it's very clear that a lot of these priests are Orthodox, they're fully Orthodox, and they've been Orthodox for a very long time, and then you come out and you challenge them, and you not even just challenge them, like you mock them.
Publicly,
and you slander them. And I'm like, that's not. Like, what are we doing here?
Right. What are we doing here? There was a guy, Eastern Orthodox guy online. He's a famous guy. He was making fun of the nun that did the interview. Remember that interview with the nun,
with
the Palestinian nun? Was it with? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that one. So he's making fun of her, and I replied to him. I sent him the verse where, St. Paul is in front of the Sadducee high priest. Like, you can't get more of a heretic than that guy, right? And then they tell him, how do you talk to the high priest like this? And he said, sorry, I didn't know he was the high priest. St. Paul says, sorry, I didn't know he was the high priest, for it is written, you shall not speak evil of a leader of your people. So this this famous Eastern Orthodox guy, when he was making fun of the nun, it's not about the nun that he was slandering in that particular instance. He was slandering a priest, an Eastern Orthodox priest, because he was replying back to him, and then he calls him like a liar or something like that. So then I replied, I said, you can't talk like this to them. Like, I'm not even Eastern Orthodox, right, but you can't. That's not how it goes.
Yeah, we have to respect the priesthood, and we have to respect the clergy. I want to make a point about, because I've seen people comment even on my posts that they say the saints would have been keyboard warriors. And I'm like, according to who would the saints have been keyboard warriors? First of all, you're undermining the teachings of the Orthodox Church, because the Orthodox Church teaches that it has a living tradition of saints. So it's not like this. You don't refer to the saints and just think of the ones in the early church. You don't just say the saints in the past, if they were alive today, they would be keyboard warriors. Well, we can take a look. Where can we find the saints of today? You can go to monasteries. You can find them in your local church. People that you have a feeling, you're like, this person's probably going to be a saint. And none of them, absolutely none of them, are online. They're not keyboard warriors. So this notion that they would be defending the faith by fighting people in comments is completely asinine. And another point there, when we see saints like St. John Chrysostom, St. Cyril of Alexandria, and they have these harsh rebukes of their opponents, they're not doing it from a place of pride.
No.
They're not doing it from a place of malice.
Yeah.
We need to understand that the saints were holy people first and foremost that lived lives of deep prayer and repentance. So they did that, and they lived their faith first and foremost. They lived a sacramental life. They weren't just debating people for the sake of winning arguments. They weren't filling up their minds with head knowledge and books and all this stuff. They were living the faith first and foremost. So to make this accusation against your own saints and say that they would be keyboard warriors, like, that's completely ludicrous.
Of course, absolutely. The message I have to the Roman Catholics is thank you for making it easier to love you guys. I've had a very long and good relationship with Roman Catholics. It was a Roman Catholic who, actually, I think technically he's Syriac Catholic, who introduced me to the Church Fathers to begin with. So I'm eternally grateful. I think that I look forward to dialogue, but there's something we all need to be aware of, and that is the culture in which the debates are happening. We have to be careful to not get into the young, like, attack mode polemicist kind of culture. You see this with various groups online, and it's a virus that can infiltrate. So, and each kind of group has its own kind of team of these guys to defend and whatever, but it's something that we have to stay away from, because the conversations that we have that are more personal and more charitable, these are the beneficial ones.
Yeah. And honestly, I think there's a big disparity between the behavior that you see online and the real life experience in the church.
Absolutely.
And for me, I'm very grateful because the Eastern Orthodox have welcomed me with open arms. I have so much love for the clergy, as you can tell. I mean, I have, roots of Orthodoxy. I love sitting down with Orthodox clergy, and even all the lay people that I meet at churches, nothing but beautiful experiences. So that's my exposure to Orthodoxy. That's my experience of Orthodoxy. I was never really familiar with this other side of it, where people are coming from like this position where they want to attack people.
Same.
And so I thank God that that's not my experience of Orthodoxy, because I probably wouldn't want to even be associated in any way if that was the experience that I was familiar with. So I think it's important that we recognize that this disparity. I mean, I was at a monastery recently, Eastern Orthodox monastery. That to me is like the real Orthodoxy. Like seeing the monks, praying with the monks, talking with them,
Arizona?
eating with them. Actually in New Mexico.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a beautiful monastery there. That to me is like, wow, like this is the life and the faith. It's something that you can aspire to have. Like, would I want to live like them? Would I want to be like them? And the answer would be yes. The other side, the other behavior that you see online, it pushes people away. It repels. Like, you look at that and you say, if that's what it means to be Orthodox, why would I want to even take part of that?
Yeah.
And I see this it's not an Orthodox thing. It's like, it's just human nature. Yeah. Catholics do this as well. I've actually seen nastier behavior from the Catholics, believe it or not. And if that's what it looks like to be Catholic, then why would I want to be Catholic? So we have to remember that our example is our testimony. Like, that's what shines first and foremost when you meet people.
Yeah.
If you're an absolute jerk, like, why would I want to join your church? You just treated me like I wasn't even human.
Right. Men will know that you are my disciples when you love one another.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Well, Subdeacon, I could talk to you all day. I really appreciate you sitting down with me. Where can people find you?
I'm on YouTube at just my name, Daniel Kakish. The channel is called The Lion's Den.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you, John. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to put all the links in the description below. You guys can check out Subdeacon on his channel. Thank you so much again, brother.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.